It's a real honor to be speaking to a room full of leaders and HR professionals and trainers. My own background actually is not at all in training, it's not in HR, and it's not even in the corporate world. My first job was actually as a geography high school teacher. There I am. And I had to stand at the front of rooms full of teenagers, which is even more frightening than standing in front of you, and I had to try to make them interested in volcanoes and rivers and cities around the world. But after I'd been teaching for a couple of years, I decided rather than just teaching about the world, I wanted to go and explore it firsthand. So I decided I'd try and ride my bicycle across the world. But rather than setting off from England and cycling off into the world on my bicycle, I thought it would be more fun if I started a long, long way away and then tried to ride back again. So I bought myself a one-way plane ticket and I flew from London all the way to northeast Siberia in Russia. And then I got off the plane, I took my bicycle, I started cycling, and that's the route I took to get home. You can see, not a very straight line. It took me about 3 years, about 35,000 miles through 27 different countries. And before I get going, I just want to get to know you a little bit better as an audience. So I've got 3 questions. I just want you to answer by show of hands, okay? You ready? Question 1. Who here would like to do a bicycle journey like this? Okay, that's pretty good. That's about maybe 20%. Okay, good. Question 2. Who here, not necessarily would like to do this journey, but who thinks if you were forced to do it, who thinks they would survive and make it home alive? Okay, maybe 25%. Question 3. Who here thinks that I look like a really tough guy? Oh, okay. Thank you, this table. That's very kind of you. Actually, it's very true. I am not a very tough guy. I haven't got very big muscles. I was never in the top sports teams at school. I would say I'm kind of average IQ. I'm very rarely the smartest guy in the room. And also, I'm not very brave, naturally. I told you I was a geography teacher before. What I didn't tell you is that the reason I became a teacher was because I didn't really have the confidence to try and do anything else. When I was a child, also, I had very low confidence. I was that kid in class who never put his hand up. I was too shy. And I started to believe that my whole life was going to be determined by the things I was afraid of. But I didn't want my life to be determined by the things I was afraid of, but it just felt that way. And I think actually, deep down, though I didn't really understand it at the time, that was the reason I chose to do this adventure, because I knew I needed to take on a really, really tough challenge, and that might force me to grow up and to become braver and develop as a person and be able to do more with my life. And on this journey, which I'm about to tell you about, it was a completely crazy journey, far more crazy than I could have ever imagined. But what I did find was that it wasn't about being tough. It wasn't about being the smartest guy in the room. It wasn't even about being naturally fearless. It was about having the right attitudes, the right mindsets, what I call the attitudes of adventure towards the difficulties I faced. And I found I was able to do far more than I thought I could. So let's get started. That's the day I set off. That's me on the left-hand side with my bike loaded up with gear, and I had saved up about $15,000 for this trip to last 3 years. So it was my life savings I was going to use up. On the right-hand side is my old school friend Al, who I was doing this journey with. And notice up above, behind Lenin, it is a beautiful blue sky. And it was September time in Siberia and perfect weather for setting off on a big journey. We started out down this road, nice, smooth, well, slightly bumpy, more or less smooth road heading through the wilderness. And one of the strange things we saw early on were these little Russian towns, but many of them had been completely abandoned, like ghost towns beside the road. But other towns, there were people, and the Russian people that we met were very, very friendly, and they would welcome us, and they would say to us, "Welcome to Russia! Welcome to Siberia! We are so happy to have English people visiting us on your bicycles. Welcome, welcome, welcome." But why have you come in September? Because in 1 month the Russian winter will arrive. The Russian winter is very, very cold. We are sorry to say, but if you keep going, both of you will die. You will freeze to death in the winter. So I started getting a bit nervous. Then others came up to me and looked at my clothes and they said, "No, you will not freeze to death. It is far more likely you will be eaten by a bear. You will die." So I got more nervous. And then others came up and said, "No, you will not be eaten by bears. It is the people in the wilderness, the gold miners. It is very lawless. You will die." And so everyone was very friendly, but a little bit pessimistic, and all convinced we would die. They just couldn't make up their minds how we were going to die. And so we had to really take our courage in both hands as we kept on going. And we had one more week of nice weather, and we thought, oh, maybe it's not so bad. But then one morning, early October, I got out of my tent, I looked outside, and the world had changed.